Essentially, what I would do for other things like kicking or psychology, I'll try to block off certain nights of the week in order to have time to do those things after I work out because I want to plan my time from 4 p.m. to 6-ish, 6-ish is usually what I plan to work. Then I can take the dog and then have time to eat. So a 7 to whenever is when I would have time to do sports psychology. If I need emails, all that kind of stuff, I do that throughout time. If kids are working on projects, etc., give myself 5 minutes here and there. There's 5 minutes between classes and usually 5 minutes at the start or at the end of class. There's not a lot going on. So that gives me 10 minutes times four. That's 40 minutes right there during the day that I can get something done where most people would be doing nothing. It's also a great time to go to the bathroom, all that kind of stuff, to be prepared. So again, you can focus on what actually matters in the priority, not the extracurricular. Got to remember to take this out. Got to remember to do this. Got to print this paper. Just get it all organized, and then when it comes time to it, you're ready to have that out. So I'll get papers ready the day before as well. If I'm doing a kicking camp that weekend on Monday or the Sunday before is when I'll get shirts ready. And if I have psychology that go with it, I'll print those papers and get those all lined up so that I'm ready to go. It is kind of a hassle because you got things laying around or they're in your car when you don't necessarily need them yet. But for me, from a stress standpoint, it's a lot easier to do that ahead of time. So that way I wake up, get in the car and leave. Don't have to think about, I need to get these 10 things ready. So again, a little bit is multitasking. I would say you're not able to multitask, but if you're able to do two things at once and not have to think about one, for instance, like the sprinklers, if I can work out and not have to think about the sprinklers, and then when my timer goes off, I go and change them, then you don't have to worry about it. So I think that's a great thing to have in your back pocket is multitasking without having to think about multitasking. Um, Also, in kind of doing these things, a lot of people give up. So I talked about the business last week and how things sometimes don't go the way you want it. Again, things, it's hard to set a schedule. It takes time to set a schedule. It's kind of a grind at some point to look at your calendar all the time. But ultimately, most people give up and don't do this routine wise. Again, people who talk about New Year's all the time, resolutions don't last usually 30 days. So if you can keep them going over and over, you can create this habit that becomes who you are, then you're much more likely uh, to be successful. In order to be successful, we need to set proper goals. So we need to set SMART goals, which are specific, they're measurable, attainable, relevant, and then they have to have some sort of time component to them. So that's what SMART stands for. We also have process goals and outcome goals. The good thing about this is we want 95% of our goals to be process goals. And a lot of these things that we're doing are day-to-day activities of what we need to get done and how we organize them, what we need to accomplish. And in your brain, hopefully you're thinking, okay, I need this much time to do it. Here's how I'm going to do it. And then if you have that, the outcome will be good and you'll be able to move on to the next thing and you'll feel good about crossing something off your list, but don't be too crazy like me and have to write everything down. I've used to write down sometimes when I was going to shower, stuff like that when I get stressed, but don't do that a ton anymore. So we want to have process goals rather than outcome goals. And we also want to have to make sure that it's something that we see every day. So if you look at your calendar, it's on your fridge, it's on your front door, whatever it might be, so that when you wake up in the morning, you can see what you have to do. One of the first things I do in the morning after I pray is kind of think, all right, here's what I'm going to run through my day. Here's what I need to do for the day. And I look at it that night. Okay, I'm either looking forward or not looking forward to what I have to do tomorrow based on what it is. And that will kind of determine how much sleep I also need to get, which is not necessarily the best point. I need to get better at just going to bed at this time and waking up at this time, no matter what, in order to get my rest. So when I plan, I think about the goals that I want to reach. I set goals 3 times a year. So spring, fall, and summer. And I think about, okay, what are those lists that I want to create? What are the outcomes I want and how do I get to those outcomes? And I plan my week based off of those outcomes. So for instance, right now I talked about my snatch last week. I want to snatch 225, which compared to the general public is great. Compared to CrossFitters isn't that great. But for me, it'd be a PR. So I didn't get that in the winter. So I need to change my workout and then make sure I have an allotted time frame in order to do that. I want to do some things with the house. Okay, I need to have an allotted time frame of when that can work out, being at school, not being at school. in order to make that happen. I had some other goals about the training division that I reached. Now I need to go execute those and spend some time on it and make sure that they are quality. So when your goals are set, make sure you write them down, make sure you see them, and make sure they are specific, they're measurable, they're attainable, they're relevant, and then you have some sort of time component. Is that this week? Is that this month? Is that this year? We want a little bit of both. We want short-term, medium-term, and long-term goals. And long-term can be, it's a little bit of a gray. It can be determined what you want. I think of long-term goals as semesters. I think of long-term as year, 5, 10-year, all that kind of road mapping, as we call it. But basically, we want to remind ourselves of the ultimate goal, but on the day-to-day, we want to be working towards that little small goal. Short-term goals are going to help you reach your medium-term goals. Kind of reaffirming or changing up your medium-term goals based on how the short-term goals went will allow you to shift perspectives, put in the work again, and then your long-term goal will maybe shift or not shift based on kind of the quality of work or where you're at. And then ultimately, hopefully reach your goal when that time is up. And if you don't, I always say you're still better than people who didn't set goals and you still tried hard. You're still getting better compared to most people, and definitely compared to yourself, which matters. And you can always reset your goal and try again. That's the great thing about you setting your own goals is you decide what's good, not good, and then can make it better in the future. Yeah, I think it's important to constantly set goals along with your planning because that gives you that motivation in order to do it. And you always want to reassess. You want to talk about it. You want to reassess. You want to visualize them. You want to think about them because the more you do all that, ultimately, the better, the more honed in, the more you're understanding, the more awareness, more motivation, more action that you will have, ultimately leading to a better sense of self. It does cause a little bit of stress, but again, that stress is going to help you be less stressed over time, especially as it becomes more who you are. So that's kind of how I guide my week, my sessions of organization and planning. Try to do everything early. Don't procrastinate. Try to write things ahead. So like the house things I want to do, I want to do landscaping, patio. I wrote down what I need to buy, when I'm going to do it. I wrote down the expense to write it down for the expense sheet. Each month I put something in sort of a spreadsheet of here's what I made, here's what I spent, here's the stars I wrote down in my journal. That means that they're important. So I kind of have these things all planned out in an organized fashion, weekly, monthly, different times of the year that I do to make sure that I'm trying to get done what I want to get accomplished, to make sure that I see it. And when I see it, I just need to act on it. And I always say if I write something down, it's getting done. So that's kind of how I organize to keep my stress level low and have high efficiency. Let me know what you guys think, and I'll talk to you guys next week. Love you. Bye.